Call the meeting to order. Is it the pleasure of the committee to take into consideration Bill number 16, an act respecting local governance reform 2022, number 2? All those in favour, please say yay. Yay. Against, nay. Carried. Before we get going, are there any substitutions? No substitutions. Minister, do you have any opening comments? No. Okay. Any questions? Member from Kensett, sorry about that.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Bon, ben écoutez, on avait eu une bonne discussion la semaine dernière avec le ministre concernant le projet de loi. C'est assez technique, donc c'est bien. J'ai encore quelques questions. Je n'ai pas tant que ça, mais le ministre a bien répondu. Comme je disais, il est extrêmement bien entouré, et puis je vois que c'est encore toutes les mêmes personnes compétentes qui l'entourent. J'aimerais juste de poser comme question, est-ce qu'il y a des changements qui sont apportés concernant les règlements d'aménagement du territoire et de zonage?
Président, ça va bien? Monsieur le Président, aux membres de Kensett. Donc, c'est ça, en consultation avec le milieu associatif, il y a 2 changements. Le premier changement, c'est que tout de suite, pour les municipalités qui absorbent des nouvelles sections, donc par exemple le Greater Lakeburn, qui va dans la ville de Dieppe, par exemple, au niveau de la planification de ce qui présente des nouveaux plans, avant, il y avait un délai de 18 mois. Là, aujourd'hui, ça va être 5 ans. Donc, ça a poussé de 18 à 5 ans. Puis l'autre, c'est pour les zones inclusives. Lorsqu'on a sorti le livre blanc, on a parlé des zones d'inclusion, c'est ça, inclusif. On croyait peut-être qu'on allait le faire de manière obligatoire, mais en consultation encore avec le milieu associatif puis les municipalités, ils nous ont préconisé que ça devrait être plus volontaire. Donc, il va y avoir des règlements qui s'en viennent sur les zones inclusives. Ça, il y a 2 choses par rapport à ce projet de loi. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Merci beaucoup au ministre via le Président. Ma prochaine question, je vais y aller assez vite là, est-ce qu'il y a des changements qui sont apportés par rapport aux responsabilités concernant les routes?
Monsieur le Président, aux députés de Kentud, donc, en effet, les chemins des gouvernements locaux restructurés, il y a deux choses. Un, il y a des précisions sur la question de l'aménagement et de l'entretien de nouveaux chemins au sein des nouvelles entités restructurées qui doivent être apportées. C'est normal, il y a des nouvelles municipalités, mais on garde quand même la responsabilité des chemins. Donc, au niveau de l'aménagement et l'entretien des nouveaux chemins au sein des entités doivent être apportés. Et le ministère des Transports et de l'Infrastructure doit aussi approuver le plan de lotissement dans les limites d'une municipalité où le ministère a conservé la responsabilité des chemins.
J'apprécie la réponse, mais comme je ne suis pas si intelligent que ça, j'apprécierais un exemple concret. Si le ministre pourrait me donner un exemple concret, par exemple, puis là, je vais donner un exemple que je connais, on va parler du Grand Bouctouche. Le Grand Bouctouche la ville de Bouctouche s'occupe au sein de la ville des limites de ses propres routes, mais là, elle incorpore tous les différents DSL que la province s'occupait des chemins. Pouvez-vous m'expliquer qu'est-ce qui va arriver cette heure avec la nouvelle réalité? Me donner des exemples. Merci.
Monsieur le Président et aux députés de Kentud, très bonne question. Donc, le Grand Bouctouche, comme vous le savez, s'accapare de plusieurs DSL. Donc, le DSL de Sainte-Anne, par exemple. Les chemins du DSL de Sainte-Anne restent quand même la responsabilité du gouvernement ou le département, le ministère des Transports et Infrastructures. Si par hasard, sur les chemins-là, il y aurait un lotissement de maisons, bien, le lotissement-là a besoin d'être approuvé par le ministère des Transports et de l'Infrastructure aussi pour les chemins. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Merci beaucoup. J'apprécie la réponse via le Président. La dernière question par rapport à ça, est-ce qu'il y a... Le projet de loi parle... Je veux juste avoir une confirmation que le projet de loi ne parle pas qu'éventuellement, ça serait transféré aux municipalités pour la question que les chemins, à un moment donné, ça ne sera plus la province, mais ça sera la municipalité. Puis la prochaine question, c'est est-ce que ça fait partie de la réforme? Il y a le projet de loi, mais il y a la réforme en général. Donc, je demande au ministre, est-ce que ces chemins-là, éventuellement, ça sera la responsabilité des municipalités de s'occuper de l'ensemble des chemins?
Monsieur le Président, aux membres de Kentud, il n'y a aucun plan pour qu'il y ait un transfert de responsabilité des routes de la municipalité à la province, à moins que la municipalité demande pour cette responsabilité. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Merci au ministre pour la réponse. Maintenant, je vais passer à un autre. Est-ce qu'il y a des responsabilités supplémentaires pour les services de police qui seront transférés aux gouvernements locaux? Merci. Non? Donc, en d'autres mots, ça reste comme c'est là. OK, je vois que...
Ça va rester tant que c'est là, jusqu'à temps que la municipalité fait des demandes avec la province.
Bien, merci. C'est le fun quand c'est simple et court. Il me reste juste une autre couple de questions. Now I'd like to talk about this has to do with the region of St. John. There is something in the bill regarding the St. John area. I understand that there is a, let me find this, there is a repeal of the, how do you say this in English? I have this somewhere. What is it? C'est en France, la Commission des installations régionales du Grand Saint-Jean. J'ai pu comprendre que ça a été éliminé et puis que c'est transféré à the Funday Regional Service Commission. Donc, pourriez-vous m'expliquer le rationnel de ce changement? Merci.
Mr. Chair, to the MLA from Kent South. So yes, the repeal of the Greater St. John Facilities Commission Act. So the act will be repealed as it is no longer required due to the fact that the legislation does not align with the new mandate of the RCs to identify and coordinate regional cost sharing of infrastructure. Additionally, not all entities in the region currently contribute. The Act establishes that the cost sharing for these facilities will be taken over by the Fundy Regional Service Commission. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. I guess my next question would be: was there any consultations to make sure that, prior to this change, to have that commission repealed and all transferred to the Fundy Regional Service Commission? Were there any consultations for that prior? And my further question is, how will the cost be allocated to that, if there could be an explanation on that? Thank you.
To the MLA from Kent South, there has been many conversations between the mayors. As you know, the transition teams all across New Brunswick have been talking about on regional service commissions. We have 12 regional service commissions in New Brunswick. They've all had these types of discussions on recreational facilities and services. Regarding specifically Mortar St. John, the allocation is 50% tax base and 50% population. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, that completes my line of questioning to this minister. Donc, je veux le remercier. J'apprécie les réponses claires que le ministre a pu fournir durant ce questionnement. C'est un projet de loi qui est relativement administratif. Donc, il n'y a pas vraiment raison ici de... La seule raison qu'on pourrait s'y en opposer, c'est si on est contre la réforme municipale dans son ensemble. Et on est dans une situation historique, bien, ça va de l'avant, donc on va souhaiter que ça va bien se passer. Je suis à suivre, c'est tout ce que je dirais. Mais je remercie le personnel qui a accompagné du ministre, et puis je remercie aussi le ministre pour les réponses claires qu'il a données. Merci.
Member from Kent North.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Bienvenue au ministre, à son équipe. Donc, j'ai quelques questions de clarification. Ça semble être un projet de loi, comme mon collègue disait, assez administratif. Il y a quelques petits endroits où j'aimerais des clarifications, mieux comprendre qu'est-ce que ça veut dire. Et ma première question va être en lien avec la section de la page 4 de la version française. On parle de développement communautaire régional. Et la sous-section juste en dessous, 3.2.2, on parle que la forme et le contenu de la stratégie régionale sont établis conformément au règlement. Et celle-ci comprend tout autre renseignement qu'exige le ministre. Et donc, étant donné que le ministre, le cabinet va faire un règlement et que le ministre va exiger des informations, je veux mieux comprendre ce que développement communautaire régional veut dire. Je me rappelle que, je pense que c'était la semaine passée, mon collègue avait posé une question similaire, mais je ne trouvais pas que la définition avait été assez concluante. J'aimerais que le ministre élabore sur ce que le développement communautaire régional veut dire, étant donné que ça sera sous ces exigences que les commissions de services régionaux vont devoir faire ce plan-là.
Monsieur le Président, aux membres de Kensington, comme vous le savez, les commissions des services régionaux assureront désormais un leadership dans les 5 nouvelles responsabilités de le développement économique, la promotion du tourisme, le développement communautaire, le transport en commun et le partage des coûts récréatifs. Ce qu'on pourrait certainement dire au niveau du développement communautaire régional, c'est la plus grosse chose, c'est l'intégration du réseau d'inclusion communautaire à l'intérieur des CSR. Il y a eu beaucoup de réunions dernièrement, les CSR, avec les réseaux d'inclusion communautaire. Chaque réseau a un employé avec les CSR. Puis vraiment, au niveau du développement communautaire, c'est donner une vision régionale cohérente, plan stratégique sur le logement abordable, les services d'établissement des nouveaux arrivants, puis l'inclusion sociale, communauté saine. Puis surtout, tout de suite, je crois, on va commencer à petits pas puis parcourir marathon tout de suite, c'est identifier des possibilités de partenariat. Donc, comme vous le savez, dans le comté de Kent, Magma, un bureau satellite dans le comté de Kent, donc c'est pour les nouveaux arrivants, c'est un bon commencement pour la CSR, tandis qu'il y a d'autres CSR qui ne sont même pas rendus là. Donc, je crois que c'est ça au niveau de développement communautaire régional, c'est vraiment l'intégration des réseaux communautaires, puis travailler sur le logement abordable, le service d'établissement des nouveaux arrivants, puis l'inclusion sociale. L'inclusion sociale veut quand même dire un grand mot, c'est peut être comment être global. Ça sera à chaque CSR de développer en consortium avec le réseau d'inclusion communautaire et les municipalités, à savoir qu'est-ce qu'ils veulent s'attaquer au niveau développement communautaire régional. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Merci au ministre pour la réponse. Un élément qui manque de la réponse, c'est toute la question de la souveraineté alimentaire, la sécurité alimentaire. Est-ce que ça va être une exigence ou est-ce que ça, c'est vraiment optionnel?
Monsieur le Président, aux membres de Kent Nord, comme vous le savez, dans l'article-là, au niveau, c'est certainement, comme on dirait, un des dossiers volontaires ou prioritaires chez de la CSR du comté de Kent. Est-ce que c'est prioritaire dans toutes les autres communautés? Ça, on ne sait pas encore. Les nouvelles CSR prennent effet, commencent le travail le 1er janvier. Donc, tout de suite, c'est à savoir, est-ce que c'est quoi les priorités? Moi, je suis convaincu lorsque la CSR du comté de Kent va miser sur l'alimentaire, l'agroalimentaire comme une priorité. Je suis convaincu qu'il va y avoir des meilleures pratiques, puis ça sera partagé avec les autres CSR. Encore, on commence juste. Le développement communautaire peut être tellement global quand que restreint aussi, là, donc tout de suite, c'est à savoir, c'est vraiment au niveau exploratoire, embryonnaire, mais tout de suite, je crois que surtout l'arrivée des nouveaux arrivants puis le logement abordable, c'est des priorités de l'heure. Je crois que on a vu dans la période de questions puis les derniers mois, puis durant la pandémie, on a vu beaucoup de nouveaux arrivants, puis le logement abordable est certainement une priorité pour n'importe quel gouvernement à travers le Canada. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Merci beaucoup au ministre. J'arguerais que la souveraineté alimentaire est très importante aussi au Nouveau-Brunswick et devrait être prioritaire. On a perdu 20 de nos fermes dans les derniers 5 ans, selon Recensement Canada. On produit à peine 3 de nos fruits et légumes. Au Nouveau-Brunswick, il n'y a aucun ministère du gouvernement du Nouveau-Brunswick que le mandat de la souveraineté alimentaire ou de la sécurité alimentaire. J'ai déjà posé la question au ministère de l'Agriculture. Ce n'est pas eux. Eux, c'est du développement de l'industrie. Ce n'est pas les questions de souveraineté et de sécurité alimentaire. Je vois très clairement ici que le ministre, à travers de règlements, peut l'exiger. Donc, je vais demander au ministre aujourd'hui, est-ce qu'il va exiger inclure la souveraineté alimentaire comme étant quelque chose qui doit faire partie du développement communautaire régional.
Monsieur le Président, aux membres de Kenor, bon point. Sécurité alimentaire, tout de suite, on le fait au niveau des réseaux d'inclusion communautaire. On fait la promotion à travers les écoles de la sécurité alimentaire, ça c'est une chose. Puis je suis certainement conscient aussi que ma collègue, la ministre de l'Agriculture, parle tout le temps de, comme tu viens juste de le dire, qu'on produit seulement 3 de ce qu'on mange. L'objectif du ministère, c'est certainement amener ça à 10 tout de suite. Donc, ça, c'est quand même des initiatives qui existent déjà au Nouveau-Brunswick. Donc, certainement, sur ta question spécifique, on peut certainement, on va le faire, le ministère, c'est un bon point que vous avez soulevé, on va l'amener au CSR. Puis si qu'on peut avoir, à plus long terme, si qu'on peut avoir, comme on pourrait dire, un peu plus de push, on peut certainement revenir ici pour élargir le mandat, puis même faire un projet de loi pour le mettre dans la loi. Ça, c'est certainement quelque chose, si que la demande du milieu associatif, nos municipalités et les CSR veulent demander, je crois que c'est tellement approprié de revenir puis faire un projet de loi. Merci beaucoup, M. le Président.
Merci beaucoup. Ça semblait être par règlement, par contre, là, de ce que je peux comprendre, là, que la forme et le contenu de la stratégie régionale sont établis conformément au règlement. Et donc, je pense que le ministre aura ce pouvoir-là sans revenir à la Chambre. C'est sûr que j'aimerais le voir d'inclus aujourd'hui dans le 3.2.1, mais ce n'est pas là. Et donc, je vais m'en remettre au ministre de considérer ça très sérieusement et d'ajouter ça au règlement parce que la sécurité alimentaire, la souveraineté alimentaire avec l'affaiblissement des chaînes d'approvisionnement est un énorme défi, autant que la manque de main-d'œuvre, que l'immigration, l'intégration, et autant que le logement abordable à ce point-ci. Même que, tu sais, pendant la pandémie, on a eu je me rappelle, à un moment donné, il y avait eu un plan développé par le gouvernement qui n'a jamais été suivi, mais ça avait été vu comme étant un des choses qu'il fallait réfléchir pendant la pandémie. Donc, je souhaite sincèrement que le ministre considère ça très, très sérieusement quand il vient le temps de faire ce règlement-là. Ma prochaine question, et ça sera certainement proche de ma dernière, étant donné qu'on est encore limité par le temps, par le gouvernement dans notre capacité de poser des questions. Ma dernière question, je vais référer le ministre et son équipe à la page 6 de la version française, 3.44. On parle ici on parle du rapport qui est numéré à la page précédente, le rapport que la Commission va envoyer, qui inclut ici la liste de l'ensemble des éléments d'infrastructure qui ont été recensés ou cernés conformément au paragraphe 1 et la liste des éléments d'infrastructure dont le coût doit être supporté par ses membres ou par certains d'entre eux en l'application du paragraphe 2. Donc, lorsqu'on vient à 3.44, on parle ici que dès la réception du rapport, le ministre procède à son examen afin de déterminer si l'un quelconque des éléments d'infrastructure figurant à la liste visée, mais ne figurant pas à celle visée par l'alinéa 3B, devrait faire l'objet d'une répartition des coûts en application du paragraphe 2. On continue la question, c'est juste mon introduction. On va plus bas. Et à 3.46, on parle ici que tout ordre donné par le ministre en vertu de l'alinéa 5B est réputé constituer une détermination faite par la Commission en application au paragraphe 2. Donc, si je comprends bien, le ministre va être capable d'exiger que certaines infrastructures soient partagées. Les coûts soient partagés, ou si la liste n'est pas complète, le ministre va avoir son mot à dire. Ça, c'est si je comprends bien. Maintenant, si je comprends bien, ma question est, est-ce que le ministre, de son côté, va être exigé de remettre un rapport à la Commission expliquant sa décision et le processus de décision qui l'a amené à prendre cette décision. Pour, d'une part, bien que les élus municipaux comprennent, d'autre part, pour définitivement tenter d'enlever tout doute d'ingérence politique ou de n'importe quel genre d'influence que un membre ou d'autres intérêts auraient pu exercer au niveau provincial pour outrepasser des décisions régionales.
Aux députés de Quintude, en effet, la chaîne d'approvisionnement, surtout au niveau manger, on voit même les deux, au niveau de l'obtention des drogues des enfants, c'est tout partout outre-mer. Puis s'il y a quelque chose qu'on doit faire, c'est garder qu'est-ce qu'on peut garder ici au Nouveau-Brunswick ou au moins dans les provinces atlantiques, puis avoir une coordination. Donc, c'est pour ça je suis certainement d'accord. Au niveau des infrastructures, en effet, le 3.4.6 donne au ministre l'opportunité de faire une décision lorsqu'il y a un impasse. En effet, vous l'aviez bien remarqué. Puis oui, en effet, le ministre doit rendre sa décision dans une lettre pour expliquer le pourquoi. Donc, la lettre doit être faite. Jusqu'à date, il y a on va dire 3 régions qui ont eu des petites impasses. Donc, à Saint-Jean, ils vont continuer longtemps, qui ont jusqu'en 2025. Il y a eu certaines impasses dans la région du nord-ouest et du sud-est. Je les ai demandé de nouveau de revenir à table en 2023, puis là, me revenir. Donc, encore, c'est des dossiers épineux lorsqu'on s'en vient avec des budgets puis des partages des infrastructures. C'est normal, mais moi, je suis convaincu que ce qu'on peut trouver le consensus, c'est ça qui est l'objectif primaire. Ce ne sera pas le 3.4.6 sera utilisé de manière courante. C'est vraiment une exception, mais ça donne au moins au ministre de faire la continuation des services-là. Merci beaucoup, M. le Président.
Merci au ministre, à son équipe, à travers du président, à projet de loi technique, questions techniques. Des fois, c'est dur à tout suivre, mais on essaie de mieux comprendre, en espérant qu'avec la dernière réponse que le ministre nous a donnée, qu'on sera plutôt dans la lettre qu'on explique, qu'on donnera plus d'informations et non moins d'informations. Je sais que plus d'informations a plus de chances de faire mal à un gouvernement, mais je pense que c'est quand même mieux pour mieux comprendre les décisions, puis de faire diminuer le cynisme des citoyens qui ensuite subissent, eux, ces décisions-là. Et donc, c'est toujours dans une optique d'améliorer le processus démocratique On parle souvent, et j'ai entendu le ministre dire souvent, j'ai entendu dire dans cette Chambre, souvent par d'autres membres, que la politique municipale, régionale est la politique la plus près du peuple. Dans mon rêve pour la suite, ça serait de encore donner plus de ce pouvoir-là au peuple, d'assurer, le ministre le sait très bien, dans ma façon de penser, de voir la politique municipale, de donner encore plus de pouvoir par des forums, même allant jusqu'à la démocratie directe dans des municipalités qui choisiraient de le faire. Et donc, je souhaite sincèrement que ce n'est qu'un début et qu'on est encore très loin de la fin. Merci.
Thank you. Any further questions? Minister, do you have any closing remarks?
Mr. Chair, just like to thank again our Deputy Minister, Ryan Donaghy, Assistant Deputy Minister, Jennifer Wilkins, Director of Policy and Local Governance Reform, Joanne Higgins, and Nathalie Dubois, Director of Internal Alignment. As the MLA from Kent South and Kent North have clearly indicated that local governance reform has a great team, the department has great people working there. Et en effet, au député de Kent Nord, est-ce qu'on peut ramener la démocratie encore plus proche des gens, ça va tout le temps être un gain pour tout le monde. Ça prend du temps pour changer des choses comme ceci. On le voit à tous les jours dans nos institutions démocratiques puis nos institutions gouvernementales. Ça prend du temps à faire du changement, mais à la fin de la journée, je l'ai vécu au niveau municipal, surtout à la ville de Dieppe avec un budget participatif, puis ça mène une différente quand même connotation, puis les gens sont fiers de leurs décisions. Et aux députés de Kent Sud, merci pour les questions, puis c'est toujours intéressant de parler du Grand Boctouche aussi. Donc, merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Minister. Just ask the staff to step outside and we'll do our vote. Is it the pleasure of the committee that Bill number 16, an act respecting local governance reform, 2022, number 2, stand as presented and that I report the bill is agreed to? Those in favor, please say yay. Yay. Against, nay. Carried. We'll take a brief recess to bring in the other department. Call the meeting to order. Is it the pleasure of the committee to take into consideration Bill number 18, an act to amend the New Brunswick Museum Act? All those in favor, please say yea. Against, nay. Carried. Minister, do you have any opening comments or remarks? Or oh, sorry.
David Kuhn substituting for Kevin Arsenault.
Okay. Minister, are we ready for questions? Do you have any comments? Or
No, thank you. I welcome the additional questions today. Thank you very much.
thank you. Any questions? Member from Fredericton South.
Yeah.
Minister, they'd like to know who you brought.
So with me today, I brought, well, I'll get their titles if you need specifics, but we have Brent Sutty here with the Department of Tourism, Heritage and Culture. He is our Chief Operating Officer for the New Brunswick Museum. We have Jason Humphrey, Executive Director of Strategic Initiatives and Policy with the Department of Tourism, Heritage and Culture. And we have Mike Como, Deputy Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you. Member from Fredericton South.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to the staff and the Minister, particularly the Deputy Attorney General. It's very officious. It's good. So I wanted to, we're talking about, you know, a bill which is giving considerable authority to the Board of Directors and whether or not they have more than they have in terms of overseeing the construction of a new museum. And just to refresh everyone's memory, we were talking about their capacity, their short numbers, they've got vacant seats. So just to give us a sense of what level they're functioning at, how many board members were present at the most recent Board of Directors meeting?
Thank you, Chair. So there were 9 members present and 2 absent.
So that would be 9 out of, if I recall, is it 15 that the full complement of directors is 15?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the last meeting was the first week of September, and there were 9 members present, 2 absent, and there were 4 vacancies at the time.
So that would be 15, I guess. Now, what kind of commitment do the board members have? What's their obligation? How many, let's start with how many meetings a year would a board member be required to attend?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's 4 meetings required a year.
So 4 meetings a year, and are those in-person meetings, or are they Zoom meetings, or hybrid, or telephone meetings?
They've been a combination of both. They can be either. Certainly during the pandemic, very often online.
And has the board hired a consultant to assist them with developing the museum project?
Mr. Chair, so the board has not hired that position. However, we're going through the process of getting this act approved, and that will be their next step once this is passed. Thank you.
Is the board actively engaged in site identification for the planned museum exhibition center?
Mr. Chair, so the board currently does not have the authority to select a site. However, they are fully engaged in what the options may be. Again, the proposal will come from the board. This will be a decision they make where the New Brunswick Museum will be located in the city of St. John.
But in that the board is accountable ultimately to the minister, Mr. Chair, isn't it the case that the minister would have to sign off on the agree to the ultimate location or site location for the museum exhibition building?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Thank you for that response, Mr. Chair. Since we are essentially operating under time allocations, since government has decided to limit the opportunities for examination of bills in committee and opportunities for time for debate, I'm going to thank the staff, the minister, and pass on the questioning to my colleagues from the official opposition. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Member, any questions? Member from Bathurst Beresford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I know we've spent 2 days, and I'm trying to put everything back together and join the links of what was discussed the last 2 times, so I might need some clarification on some items. I have, I guess it's an order in council 7 new members, or 7 members were now officially named to the board on top of the one we discussed last week. Can the minister let us know, out of the 7 members, how many were existing and were just renewed, and how many are new? And could we know which ones are new?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, hot off the presses here, we do have our new members appointed, and we are returning is William Forrestal and Chief Hugh Akagi. They've been serving on the board, and they have been reassigned. And newcomers are Neil Vibert of Miscou, Lynn St. Pierre Ellis of Fredericton, Ralph Thomas of St. John, Noel Milia of Elsie Booktook, and Brian Lorden of Riverview. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with last week's discussion, we now have 6 new board members on a board of 50. We still have 9 current. The 7 that was, by my math, you had 15 altogether. There's 5 new ones here plus Wayne last week. That's 6. So that leaves 9 existing. That's 7 plus 2 renewed. I don't need. I've done the math. I'm good. We don't need to wait. Last week, when my colleague asked the question around the role of the board, and I just want to verify this, the answer we got that the board does the administration of the museum. The relationship with the department is that they provide the operational dollars, and that there's an annual report. Is that essentially, is there anything that we need to add, or is that about sums up what the board is responsible for?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. So just for clarity, the board provides oversight and governance of the museum, and it sets the strategic direction for the museum and is accountable to the minister.
Okay, through the chair, thank you. Let's make sure these people can get home for supper. I'm going to try to combine a few questions that are on the same topic. Will this bill change anything in the role of this board or the relationship with the department? And if it does, no, I'll come back on that one. Just, will it change anything in the relationship with the department and the board's responsibilities?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So certainly this bill is, as I've said different times before, and it's something I remain excited about, this is a vehicle that we're creating that allows us to get our New Brunswick Museum built finally after all of this time. What this bill will do, the key provisions of the bill is empowering the board to for the first time, the board will be empowered to enlarge, repair, renovate, or alter museum buildings, and to plan and supervise such projects, to design, erect, enlarge, repair, renovate, or alter any building, and to plan and supervise such projects, and to regulate the use of its buildings and its contents for the first time. Thank you.
Okay, well, Mr. Chair, since we're on the news release, so I just read that third paragraph myself, let's go to the fifth paragraph. There's a quote here from the president of the board that says, "The board of the New Brunswick Museum welcomes the opportunity to review this proposed legislation and to understand more fully its significance for the process of designing and building a new home for the museum in St. John." I'm wondering, this release was on November 15th. 7 new board members were recruited. Was there enough time to discuss with the board what these new duties would be? And when they were recruiting new board members with their, I imagine, their nomination committee, that they would have, we asked the question last week if the nomination committee had proposed last week's nominee. I don't know if it was done for these people. But if there was time to get the qualifications to get these new duties on these new members, if it does change the composition of the board and what they need to accomplish.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'll certainly, at the time of our board posting, the press release that you refer to, and certainly this bill was in the public domain. So we are, while I cannot be certain, as applicants made their submission, I can't be certain that they had all dissected the bill, but certainly the board was well aware of the bill and the responsibilities that were going to be asked of them once this bill is approved. And we fully anticipate now that, again, we had 23 applicants. It was a wildly successful call for new board members. And so I'm incredibly happy with that, the caliber of people who stepped forward. Many we had to say no to because there were a lot of stars on that list. But I will say that certainly we will, now that the board has been fully established, we will be meeting with them to discuss the bill and the details going forward of what all of this means once it is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair, if it is approved. Just clarification here. I guess the reason I'm asking these questions are the minister a few times last week said that this bill would be beneficial for the construction of the museum because it would be more efficient to have a board of volunteers, more efficient and cost-effective to have a board of volunteers do this. And now we understand that they weren't necessarily picked for their, I'm absolutely convinced they're all amazing people and they're very well qualified to be on a board of a museum, but to build a museum, and the statement was last week that they were more apt or qualified to do a better job than DTI, who's got employed people who do this for a living. They would be better qualified or better organized to get this done properly on the museum. So I'm wondering, again, why do we feel that this bill will allow this to get done better than what we currently have as a process in this province?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So DTI does amazing work every day. They do work across our province, and no one is questioning their abilities, as far as the department goes of this work. However, we have explored years and years of ways to get a New Brunswick museum built for the people of New Brunswick, and it has not been accomplished. There's been no success, and the people deserve to have this museum built. This was seen as the best path forward. This is empowering a group of people, smart group of people, I'm glad you acknowledge that, that is more passionate probably about this museum than most others, because while they serve on a board, they have put their time forward, volunteering their time for that. Now, so DTI, this bill exists because we see examples across the country, across the street of, these cultural treasures that have been able to be, they've been transformed, or there's been new cultural institutions designed and constructed, and this has all been done by empowering boards of directors, Mr. Chair. We are not creating something new. This is an opportunity that we really can't overlook, I believe. I believe this is the best path forward. I believe this is the vehicle we need. We need to have the support of this board. Now, I think that, I don't know, I don't know if we really have to look a lot further than the Beaverbrook Art Gallery and the wild success they've been able to have. So hopefully I've answered your question.
Thank you. Through the chair, no. I agree, DTI does great work. I don't even question it. Matter of fact, I'm questioning because of that. We've heard about this before, that there's been many different versions of the museum over the year that hasn't gone ahead. Is the minister laying this at the feet of DTI? That the reason that all these other projects didn't go through, that it would be because DTI wasn't the right vehicle? Because that's kind of what came out in that answer. I just want to clarify that.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I absolutely, most certainly never said or felt that the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure is not incredibly good at the work they do for the people of this province. So I will certainly set that straight if I could. But I don't know why, Mr. Chair, we are so hesitant to look at these examples around us, why we are hesitating to look at the Beaverbrook, for example, that just so recently had such a wildly successful campaign and build. This is a project that so many people got behind, and it was able to be successful because of that level of support. So, Mr. Chair, I cannot for the life of me understand why this time for our New Brunswick Museum, which deserves excellence as well, why the members opposite seem to have such a very big concern with the empowerment of this board. I have every confidence that they're able to take this. We know that they're going to be hiring the expertise that they need. It's a job that they said they're up for. We had 23 applicants want to serve on this board of directors. You know, this is the talk of the town, most certainly, talk of the province, and people want to be a part of it at various levels. So, Mr. Chair, I very much, support this concept. I support that, we look at across the street from this house, it's this monument to it's a monument to the terrific power of an empowered board of directors. The Beaverbrook Art Gallery has been transformed, and, and all of the components are the same, money raised from government and private sources, and they've procured the best service providers at the best price for design, project management, construction, and so on. So I'll leave it there, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the reason the opposition is so concerned is because we're sort of presented with the fact that the reason this project hasn't gone forward is because the current system that we have wasn't able to do it. It's not about, that's what the fait accompli that we were given last week, often, that it would be better, we'd be better served by this board than we were what we had right now. Now, we can start asking questions about the current format that's presented under the bill. So let's go with a straightforward one. Let's start by saying, if this bill passes, how does it change accountability to this House by having this board with all this power, as opposed to having DTI do it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've already said, and I think it's very, very important to remember that the board is accountable to the minister, and the minister is accountable to this House. This legislation, this act change, none of that changes that reality, that absolutely the best interests of New Brunswickers are at the forefront of this, and there is transparency and there is accountability all along the way to ensure that New Brunswickers are protected and their asset.
Does the minister know why the previous project was cancelled? The previous $50 million that had been assigned for the project, and I guess the 100 overall, because the federal government had also put it. Can the minister give us some insight on why that was canceled?
Mr. Chair, I was not member of government at that time, so I really cannot answer all of the decision around that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's interesting. We had lots to talk about last week. Okay, let's switch over. In the news release, there's mention of an $8 million that was allocated by the provincial and federal government earlier this year to support planning work for the museum's new home. Can we get some details on what that $8 million was is allocated for and what's planned for it?
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. And certainly, we were very happy to be able to secure that $8 million towards the museum project. It was certainly seen as a major step forward, and so we were excited about that, and certainly New Brunswickers were excited about that. So, and of that total, 4.6 million are provincial dollars, and federal dollars, $3.8 million. So the museum planning project will include the site assessment, architectural design, engineering, and other costing details that will allow the project to move to the construction phase.
So if that $8 million is going to be used to do site assessment, architectural design, and engineering, and you're putting a board together to direct all aspects of, design, is this like, my understanding is you wanted the board so they would have all the decision-making on what this museum would look like, what the architectural design would look like, aside from the engineering, I'd say, but is this new board that has all this power, are they going to be presented with pretty much a package deal designed already and they just rubber stamp it? Because if that's the case, why not just give it to DTI?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So this $8 million is there, that really is that money is there to allow them to take this project and to do all of the things I said in terms of planning and designing what this future New Brunswick Museum will be. They will, I'm expecting, them to, I'm expecting them to make a presentation to me on what their design is, and they're probably looking at all different options. I really don't know that. All I know that is, I expect them to take their responsibility very seriously, and it is a very big responsibility. It truly, I understand that, but they're they are being tasked with all aspects of the work required to get us a New Brunswick museum. And when the day comes, they will present to us their proposed project, and they will have to raise funds, federally, provincially, private funds, for it to be built. So certainly it is a large responsibility, but there's no one better equipped in terms of a board with this passion, with representation from across the province to get this project done.
Through the chair, thank you. My understanding is that so far, the board still needs to, and through the department, figure out a little bit of what the role is going to be, how it's going to be handled. There's still, I'm guessing from that answer, that not much of the $8 million has been spent yet, so we're still very much at the preliminary stage of this project. Almost, and I believe somebody in the House recently said almost to the point of being an empty box. So I think we still got lots to do, so we're really at the beginning of this. Interesting. Last week, the minister brought up that there would be a separate foundation to raise money for this project. Is that my understanding of what's going to happen?
Mr. Chair. So the foundation, I hope I understood the question. The foundation isn't new. The foundation has been there. And I guess what is new? The foundation isn't new. What is new is hopefully amendments to an act that will empower the board at museum, to the board at the museum to get the museum built. We do have a foundation with a board of directors, representation from across the province on that board, and they're prepared to do, well, what they're intended to do, I guess, as the foundation is to raise money for a New Brunswick museum. So they will help raise funds. They will work with the board, I have no doubt, to help raise dollars. They'll work hand in hand and towards and really working together. They will, the board will set the design, will set the plan, will set the project. The foundation will help raise money, but certainly together they will also be reaching out to other partners, federal and provincial, for financial support, of course. Thank you.
Through the chair, the reason I brought up this question is last week, what we were told is we needed a separate foundation because some partners may hesitate to donate to what they feel is a project that's government operated or owned, or so we needed something that, I'm not sure exactly where the minister was going with it at the time, that maybe put forward the museum as opposed to being a government operation. So there was a clear indication that there was going to be a separate foundation created to raise money specifically for this project. Has that changed in the last week, where now it is the existing foundation that is going to take care of it? Is that what I'm hearing? Or
Through you, Mr. Chair. Well, certainly I regret if I was not clear, because there's never been an intention to create a new foundation. It's the existing foundation that's been there with the board of directors in place, and they are, looking forward to the opportunity to have a museum plan to fundraise for. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Okay, so, all right. So it makes more sense. What I'm understanding is this foundation will create a capital campaign because they are already are raising funds. Will there be any changes required through the foundation in their bylaws in the types of donations they can receive or the types of support they can get, whether it be the type of partners or the form in which those contributions could be made, or will the existing bylaws cover everything that's required for this project?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the foundation has a fund development committee in place that's already been set up, or it already has terms of reference that include a capital campaign.
Through the chair, has the budget been established for this project?
Thank you.
So no requests or projects have been filed for federal funding at all for this project to date?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's been no application submitted for provincial or federal funding, other than that $8 million that we had secured earlier.
Mr. Chair, that is the questions I had. I just want to say I want to thank the staff that are here to get these answers. But after the discussion that we had in the legislature, it seemed like the only thing missing for this project was for this bill to go through. But here we are, no budget, no project, new members that weren't really aware of what the new mandate was going to be. And a lot of questions still surrounding why this bill is coming around. So obviously, I won't be supporting this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, member. Any further questions? Member from Kerka.
Bonjour à Madame la ministre et à tout le personnel. J'ai juste une chose que je n'ai pas saisie, puis La semaine passée, quand on était en comité, on vous a posé des questions pendant à peu près 2 heures. Et puis, pendant tout ce 2 heures-là, il était question d'une autre fondation, parce que la fondation présente ne répondait pas aux attentes, comme l'expliquait mon collègue. Puis là, aujourd'hui, on arrive, puis finalement, c'est la même fondation. Ça fait que qu'est-ce qui a changé depuis ce temps-là que maintenant pourquoi le discours est différent aujourd'hui, que la fondation présente convient, parce qu'elle ne convenait pas la semaine passée?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So certainly, we did spend 2 hours talking last week, and I certainly do regret if I gave that impression. I never believed that there was going to be a new foundation formed. In fact, this act really has nothing to do with the foundation at all. The focus very much is on empowering the board. So, you know, this is about new powers for the New Brunswick Museum Board. And certainly, as I've said, the foundation remains in place and remains strong, awaiting a project to fundraise for.
Merci, Madame la ministre. En tout cas, c'était pas mal clair la semaine passée que vous aviez besoin de faire une nouvelle fondation parce que les gens ne voulaient pas donner des dons, parce que ça aurait, à cause de leur fierté. Je veux dire, j'ai réécouté nos échanges, en tout cas. Je veux dire, c'est pour nous, là, à l'opposition, là, qui voulons, évidemment, comme vous, un musée. Là, on se rejoint là-dessus. Là, on pense que c'est important d'avoir le musée du Nouveau-Brunswick. Mais il y a tellement d'éléments qui sont flous pour nous autres là-dedans. Je veux dire, on ne connaît pas la magnitude du projet, on ne connaît pas l'emplacement du projet. Le conseil d'administration est entièrement neuf. Ça fait que c'est difficile pour nous de se faire une idée ou se faire une tête là-dessus. Et puis tout à l'heure, vous avez mentionné que le conseil d'administration, composé de bénévoles, va se rencontrer à peu près 4 fois par an. Donc là, comment est-ce que ce conseil d'administration-là va se rencontre 4 fois par an, puis ils vont construire un musée de plusieurs centaines de millions, ou est-ce qu'ils vont se rencontrer plus fréquemment, ou ça va juste être 4 fois par an, ou comment est-ce que tout ça est viable?
Mr. Chair. So I understand the excitement on the other side of the room as well, across New Brunswick, to have a new New Brunswick museum. Clearly, this has been talked about for many years, and it's been a challenge for many governments to get this done, clearly, or we would have one. So what I can say, though, I don't want us to lose sight of what this bill is. I know the member opposite said, you know, she doesn't have anything she doesn't know where it's going to be. She doesn't know the details of this project. Well, neither do I. I don't know those details either. Mr. Chair, that is exactly what this bill is about. This is, you know, we're not here to approve a project. We're here to empower the board to get us a New Brunswick museum, a new museum. That is the entire intent. This is the pathway to get that. This is proving, you know, based on what is happening in other places, this is how projects are being built. And it's just very important that we don't lose focus. Yes, perhaps there's frustration over not having more to sink your teeth into, and I cannot wait until we have that information. I want that information as well. What we do know is for a year, we've been able to establish, you know, within the department, through the curators and through the experts, really, what is needed in terms of, you know, for functionality. We know what we need for rooms and sizes and for displays, and, you know, we know some of those details in terms of a functional plan. But in terms of where this museum's going, what it's going to look like, this is a proposal that is the board's to make. So that isn't what I'm here to do. And I cannot wait to be able to, you know, to see this museum come alive either. I just want to say that in terms of, yeah, you know, the Act does say, and as I had said, you know, the ask was earlier, what is required of the board to meet. The requirement in the Act is that they meet a minimum of 4 times a year. That does not mean, Mr. Chair, that they can't meet as often as they need, as often as they want. I can fully anticipate that they're going to be meeting lots and lots. They can form subcommittees as well to work on different aspects of this project. So I really want to just stress that that absolutely they have all of that room to meet and develop this project the way they need to. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la ministre. Et est-ce que les membres du conseil d'administration qui ont été appointés sont pleinement conscients du rôle qui les attend? Est-ce qu'ils ont été mis au courant de l'amplitude de ce projet? Merci. Bon, j'ai fini.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yes, similar question to what was asked a little bit earlier. Does the board know what they're getting into, the new members of this board? Well, certainly these are people who are incredibly passionate about the museum, and this is information that has been in the public domain through press releases and through the posting, through news stories, certainly. And when we put out the call for new members, it just closed very recently since this act has been tabled. But there was so much interest in the province. 23 people wanted to be a part of creating a new New Brunswick museum. And again, I can't say for certain what their level of knowledge was in terms of this project, but I know there was a lot of interest for a very good reason, and that is because they were going to be working on something with huge impact and a lot of meaning for the people of New Brunswick. And most certainly, as I stated before, there will be a full briefing with them once this act is successfully passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, Minister, you have any closing remarks?
Yes, thank you, and I'll just be very, very brief. I do want to thank the members opposite truly for the questions. I know I'm a little hoarse today, so I appreciate your gentleness. And I would like to thank staff who's been here over the past through these days. And again, but at the end of the day, I really, this is a bill that is going to see us to a finish line that is incredibly important. And I know it isn't, maybe it's not the conventional way, but it is, or the traditional way to get a project like this built. But we really need to get this project built for the people of New Brunswick, the people who live here, and the stories that they have to share. So I very much appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We'll just ask staff to step out and we'll vote. Is it the pleasure of the committee that Bill number 18, an act to amend the New Brunswick Museum Act, stand as presented, and that I report the bill as agreed to? All those in favor, please say yay. Yay. Against, nay. Nay. I say the yeas have it. We'll take a brief recess and bring in the next department. Look, carried. Now we'll take the brief recess. Call the meeting to order. Is it the pleasure of the committee to take into consideration Bill 22, an act to amend the Family Services Act? All those in favor, please say yay. Yay. Against, nay. Carried. Minister, do you have any opening comments or remarks? And maybe introduce your staff.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. They've just gone to get me some waters. I didn't even realize my voice started getting hoarse. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you, Mr. Chair. With me to my right is Charbel Award. He is with the Senior Assistant Deputy Minister of Justice and Legal Services. To my left is Mary McCormick, Director of Child and Youth Wellbeing, Child Welfare. And right behind me is Melissa Candy. She's the Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs. It's a pleasure to have them with me today to support me on this bill. I'm just going to talk a little bit about why this bill is here and why we brought it forward. So, no secret that the protection of child and youth at the Department of Social Development is certainly one of our priority mandates. And these amendments aim at extending the maximum amount of time for the Court of King's Bench to dispose of new applications for supervisory and custody orders to within 3 months. These amendments aimed at extending the maximum amount of time for the Court of King's Bench to dispose of the new guardianship orders to within 6 months. The revised timelines will offer sufficient time to ensure solid outcomes that are in the best interest of children and youth relating to the disposal of new cases brought before the New Brunswick courts. The Department of Social Development has already acknowledged the need for this change and has set out these revised timelines in the new Standalone Child and Youth Wellbeing Act, an act that was unanimously supported by the House, Mr. Chair. So until the new Act is proclaimed later in 2023, the Family Services Act will remain the governing legislation that will apply to these matters. And that's why these amendments being proposed today to the Family Services Act are so important. The proposed amendments to the Family Services Act will set out statutory timelines that are to be met and match the timelines that will come into force upon proclamation of the Child and Youth Wellbeing Act. I welcome the questions from the opposition. Mr. Chair, happy to take them.
Thank you. Member from Shediac-Beatty-Up.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister, for being here. Thank you, staff, as well. Thank you very much. I won't take too much time because of our limited time, so I'll try to be precise and concise. So for us, the thing is, and I talked to this last week and a little bit this week, is the least amount of time that a kid should spend in a bad situation. Just tell us how this is, you have done with your department the best job possible just to ensure that kids stay the least amount of time in a bad situation. That's my question to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think it's important to understand how this all came to be. And recently, Chief Justice DeWare, who's of course independent from government, took the initiative to issue a directive this past October. And essentially, it made child protection hearings a priority, bumping all non-criminal matters from the docket, and established maximum timelines for hearing, which is a critical improvement for efficiencies in the system. I think what's also really important is that there was a significant backlog, and cases are actually taking longer than what we're outlining here. It's just that they weren't following legislation. So now what we want to do is put in these concrete timelines for new cases, make sure the old cases get cleaned up, which is what's happening. But in the new timelines, we're providing an opportunity for families to be well represented. And so what we've done to respond to it is that we've hired 3 additional lawyers to our existing complement of 21 lawyers, which is a 15% increase. We've removed the financial test for custodial parents, ensuring that custodial parents will qualify for legal aid. We've moved to a staff lawyer model to represent custodial parents versus using ad hoc counsel, which has sped up the time it takes for parents to receive legal counsel. And we've increased their scope of service to include providing legal aid to non-custodial parents. And so what Justice DeWare did was she really called to action, and this is how we've responded.
Thank you very much for clearing that out. My next question is, I know there's a federal element of workforce involved in this. I talked to this also as well, was my second point. Is there something that staff with legal expertise in New Brunswick could do to help prepare the kitchen for when the cooks arrive, so they can help, lighten the load, if we can put it that way, just pour s'assurer, just to make sure that the cases are prepared properly. And when people arrive here, do we have people here in New Brunswick that can do that? Because what it boils down to is staffing. It's this what it is. So, to that effect, are there people in New Brunswick that could help with that effect? So when people arrive in the federal jurisdiction, that save time.
So I got even some more information, which is really good with that question. Thank you so much. So the answer to the question about staffing is yes, we have them here. More importantly, though, we freed up their time to do this job so that they can really focus on it and help clean it up. I also spoke to the timelines of 90 days and 6 months. I think it's really important to mention that if a family is ready at 45 days, they'll get heard. So I think it's not about hardcore timelines. It's about respecting the timelines, either to the maximum or sooner.
Thank you very much to the chair again. Thank you for that answer. Last question for me is, if we have a chance and we're lucky enough to get proper staffing and the numbers that we need to do this right, could we revisit this to make sure to bring it down again? Is it possible?
We don't feel it'll be necessary, because the whole point of this is to get the system caught up. And if a family is ready sooner than the 90 days or 6 months, they're going to get heard. So it's not about, the reason the legislation was put in place with the Child and Youth Wellbeing Act was because it's a best practice timeline. But we have the ability to go sooner if we need to. It's not about ensuring those maximum times are used, it's about ensuring that it never goes beyond that.
That thank you very much. That's all the questions that I had. And the last comment is, my last question was not a question, I agree. It's not a question of that, it's just a question that sometimes when you put timelines, you know what a timeline does, it's just short. So that's why, but we can continue this conversation. There's no problem at all. So that's all the questions I had for the minister. Thank you for the staff. Thank you for being here. And I know if I ever get any questions, I know you'll be available to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Minister, do you have any closing comments?
No, just thank the member opposite very much. Those were questions that were pertinent and certainly help, I believe, understand what we're trying to do. I appreciate their support. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff, can I...
Thank you. We'll just ask staff to step out and we'll do our vote. Coffee's still full. Is it the pleasure of the committee that Bill number 22, an act to amend the Family Services Act, stand as presented, and that I report the bill as agreed to? Those in favor, please say yea. Yay. Against, nay. Carried. We are adjourned.